right, that's great. So we'll do a little setup here real quick for you, Steve, if that's cool. And we got people rolling in, and I think we'll have some more people joining us as well. First of all, my name's Alex Weibel, and with me today are Steve and Bryan from the University of Dayton, and Dan Fink, who's also part of our team here at BuildingLogiX. We're really excited to have these two gentlemen kind of share their story and what the University of Dayton is doing in terms of really taking control of energy costs and taking some risk. And that truthfully is what was so intriguing to us about, this initiative that UD put on and is going through right now. They're going to share the story, and it's really pretty fascinating. So, for the last, I'll say, couple of years, energy costs have certainly been escalating, and we've seen that not just in our home market here in Southwest Ohio, but we've seen it all over the country. And when you see somebody doing something different, something unique, something that is, on the fringes of, traditional, I think it's really worth sharing. So Steve and Bryan, we really appreciate you guys taking the time. And Steve's going to be presenting something like this, I think, to the Midwest APA event in September. So if you're involved in that at all, you might hear this or another version of it here in later September. But we're going to give them kind of a test run here. And Steve, you want to introduce yourself any better than I just did a poor job of? Or
Oh, sure. Thanks, Alex. I'm Steve Kendig. I'm the Executive Director of Energy Utilization and Environmental Sustainability here at the University of Dayton. We're in the Office of Energy and Sustainability, which is housed in Facility Management and Operations. I've been here a little over 14 years now. Prior to that, I was in the electric and gas utility industry. Then came to UD in 2012. I want to thank Alex and Dan and his team for having us today, and hopefully we can tell a good story here for you.
Yeah. And Bryan, will you introduce yourself here real quick too?
Yeah. Hello, Bryan Kinch. I'm the Energy Performance and Utilities Manager. I work with Steve in the Office of Energy and Sustainability. I am new to working for the university, about 3 months. I think, almost exactly 3 months to the day that I started. But University of Dayton graduate, so excited to be back and talking about all this cool stuff today.
Yeah, it's great to have Bryan. So I'll get things started and then let Bryan finish things up then.
Perfect.
There we go. So, as with most universities, in 2012, the University of Dayton signed a commitment to get to zero emissions by 2050 with second nature. Many universities did that across the nation. That was the same year that I joined the university. During that time, we were focused on energy efficiency. So we were doing a lot of lighting, a lot of drives and motors type projects, using the AES incentives and rebates. We also were thinking about getting some renewable energy on campus. So we sent some RFPs out around the 2016-17 timeframe and ended up putting about 1.3 megawatts of rooftop and ground-mounted solar on campus in 2018. And also in between 12 and 18, the Hanley Sustainability Institute came on campus, focusing on sustainability and academics and in the community. So we partnered up with them during that time. 2018 was a big year for us. We got the solar on campus. We received a gold stars rating with our stars reporting. We also started a carbon feasibility neutrality plan to see how we could reduce our emissions. And out of that plan, what we found was 71% of our emissions came from our electric usage. Another 28% came from what we use with gas, and then the 1% was with our transportation. It showed us that if we were trying to, reduce our gas emissions, it was going to be costly. It was going to take many years of construction, a lot of infrastructure change. So we started focusing on the biggest chunk, and that was our electric usage. So we're looking for a large scale renewable energy project to cover our electric usage. We started sending out RFPs for some solar. We wanted to keep the project within the region or the AES footprint, close to campus as possible for student accessibility, and just to keep it within the region. We finally
Steve,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt just because we got people from all over. AES is who?
AES is formerly known as Dayton Power and Light. They're a local utility provider, service provider. It's
okay.
Their national headquarters in Indianapolis, I believe.
Yeah.
So we got a developer that was going to build a large scale solar project in Clinton County. So that fit our needs as far as being regional. We worked on the deal for several months, and some legislation came out of the state that kind of scared off the developer, and they dropped out of the project. So that was strike one for us. We kept looking. Another opportunity came. It was close to the Dayton area in Trotwood. It never really materialized, and that ended up being strike two. We didn't give up, and one day I got a call from a consultant of ours that said there may be a unique project available for the university that's not solar or wind. And so that got me really interested, and he really couldn't tell me too much about it. He said it's not a public knowledge right now, but in a couple of weeks we may be able to start talking about it. And sure enough, I got a call from AES that said they were going to be working on a project that fit our load profile for some 24/7 carbon-free power, and it was going to be within the AES service territory. So it was like checking all the boxes for us, and we were really interested in that. And so we said we're in. We wanted to talk. Trouble getting this. There we go. So just to give you an idea of all the players that were involved in this, we have Canon. They're the project developer. They're the ones that bring the Rankine cycle generation to the project. And we have Tallgrass Energy. They're the owner of the pipeline and the compressor station. And we have AES, as we said, formerly DP&L. They're going to be purchasing that power and selling it to UD. UD is the off-taker. And we had to also get the Public Utilities Commission included, because this was going to have to be a unique arrangement between the three of us or four of us, because AES is not a generator. They don't sell power. So we had to work out a deal with the PUCO where this wasn't going to hurt the consumers of Ohio, and it wasn't going to be a detriment to them. And that was a process that we had to go through. So that was a long process. So they were really excited about the project. They thought it was unique, and really helped us along the way.
Steve, I got another quick question for you on your timeline there back in, I think it was 2012 when UD signed the carbon neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
You had just joined them. So I'll say fast forward 4 years. I mean, you knew the people, you knew the campus, you knew the politics. If I would have asked you in 2016, what are your chances of getting to carbon neutrality by 2050? What would your answer have been?
Well, my first thought is I won't be here. So I'll work on it as hard as I can and hope that they get to it. But I thought it was going to be very difficult. And I was worried about the cost of it and how and what that would be. I know that some universities have done really well with their geothermal and things like that, but we weren't quite ready to dig into something like that. and get involved with that. So we were trying to figure out the easiest, the best way to reduce as much as possible, as fast as possible. But in
And
2016, I would have never dreamed that this would have happened.
yeah, how about, I mean, I'm not sure at what point, whether it was 4 years in or, 8 years in or maybe even longer, prior to looking at this as an opportunity, what kind of budget were they talking about of trying, or investment that they were going to need to make for a campus your size if they were going to go all geothermal or they were going to, electrify everything or put solar out? I mean, did you guys have a budget or a number that was ever floated?
We didn't, and that's the main reason we started with the feasibility study to kind of get a good idea of what that would be.
Okay.
The initial solar on campus was just a statement that we were dedicated to the carbon commitment, and it was a public statement so people could see that we were trying to reduce our emissions actively. So we had no idea what it would cost. That's why we did the study.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So just a quick summary of the project, and we'll get in a little more detail here as we go through the presentation. Again, it's Cannon and Tallgrass along with AES. They provided this unique opportunity to provide 100% carbon-free power. And I want to emphasize it's carbon-free. It's not renewable. So hopefully I didn't miss that in any of the slides. It is carbon-free. The power is going to be generated from a waste heat process. It's going to be in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And all of there's no additional fuel source for this power to be generated. And it's going to be using the waste heat through an organic Rankine cycle generator using an organic hydrocarbon fluid. And we'll get in a little more detail on how that works here in a little bit. So the Rocky Express pipeline runs from Pennsylvania to Colorado. At first, it was pumping gas from west to east. Now it's pumping gas from Pennsylvania out to Colorado. Each one of those little black boxes is a compressor station. We're utilizing this one here in Washington Courthouse. Not all of these are gas compressor stations. Some of them are electric, so not everyone can do the same type of project here. Just basic schematic of how the Rankine cycle generator works. We take the existing waste heat that was normally going into the atmosphere. They capture that, put it through an exchanger. They heat that organic hydrocarbon fluid up. They eventually get it to where it vaporizes and turns a generator. And it's in a closed loop system where it condenses and goes back and gets heated again. This technology's been around for a long time, but it's never been used at this scale before. So a little bit more of the details of the power purchase agreement we entered into. This is a lot of the solar projects, wind are tied directly into transmission grid. This is going to be tied directly into the AES distribution system. AES built a brand new distribution line from the Washington Courthouse substation to the generation site. It's about 2 miles. This will help us eliminate capacity charges on this generation. AES Ohio will purchase the power and credit that or to all of our residential accounts, all of our usage on campus. It has a couple cost components. As I mentioned, no capacity charges. The transmission charge to move power from the grid into AES, those go away. But not totally, because there will be times when we have to purchase power outside of when we're short. We do get receive the credits. At the end of the year, we settled up on the transmission charges and capacity charges. And again, this is 24/7 versus, so it's a base load generation, not an intermittent load like solar or wind. So it'll be running 24/7. And again, takes care of our carbon emissions, 71% of our electric emissions.
Wow.
Couple other key facts here. It's a 15-year agreement. Construction started in late 24 and it was completed in May of 26. We're expecting it to cover all of our demand or megawatt hour, 78,000 megawatt hours a year, and it will reduce 55,000 metric tons of carbon for us. And this project was, once we agreed to it, was developed specifically for UD as the off-taker. A little bit of the structure. This is a contract of differences, so there are going to be times we're short power. We'll be using a little bit more than what they're generating. That's not often, but most of the time we'll be long power as well. So we'll be selling that at a real-time market, and when we're short, we'll be buying at a day-ahead pricing. It's supposed to balance out at the end of the year to where it's, you were short as long as you were, and as many times as you were long, and it balances out. But what we're trying to do is make those short hours, reduce those short hours of power, and get a little bit more out of this. Some other benefits from this, many of the projects we do on campus, we want to have student involvement, make it a learning opportunity for them. So there were internships, we had site tours, we took faculty and staff out to the site to see the construction. They come, Tallgrass and Cannon are willing to come on campus to lecture to students and talk about the project. We do get to claim a reduction in our PLC, our CP hours, which is resulted in some savings. We also are able to swap our renewable energy credits. And if we have any questions about RECs and things
Sorry,
like
Steve,
that.
I can tell you're a salesman. Is that some savings, the $1 million in the first year alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd like for you to sell me my next new car. Okay. I mean, you can underwhelm with the best of them.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's, I don't know. Maybe I expected more.
Well, what did you expect? I mean,
I don't know. Here's my expectations are it's going to get better. How about that?
yeah. Okay. That's legit.
So we'll have we're able to claim the RECs for this as well, and I'm going to direct any questions to Bryan about the RECs because he's working on that right now. And another,
I'm likely decline to answer any of them until I figure out what we're doing exactly.
The other thing I liked about this project, the solar projects we're looking at, it was going to be hundreds and hundreds of acres of solar panels taking over farmland. And with this project, there's not going to be any additional land footprint whatsoever. And I'll give you a visual of that here. So this is a overhead view of the compressor station site. The generation is going to go in this area right here. So there's no extra permitting or anything like that for it. There's this is just a picture of a Rankine cycle generator, not the one that we're using, but just to get an idea of what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what the site looks like today. So these are all capturing, the heat was coming out of these stacks here. Now it's captured in these exchangers, and all the heat is pumped into the generation site down here.
Wow.
So while we're negotiating contracts and construction was going on, I just got the urgency that we shouldn't just be waiting for this project to get going. We needed to do something here. There's some opportunity that I wasn't thinking about that we need to try to take advantage of here. So we started focusing on all of our sub-metering to make sure all that was intact on campus, especially our electric meters. We started trending our demand and our usage on campus just to get some history, some good history. And then we started to figure out we needed a way to forecast day ahead, our load, what it was going to be, and match that up to our day ahead pricing, figure out when we were going to be long, when we were going to be short, and see how we could take advantage of those. And the system we had at the time, or we have at the time, is Metasys. It's not good tool to use for this type of work that we wanted to do. There's not good reporting. We needed some reporting and to be able to settle up at the end of the year to make sure what we saw, AES and everyone else saw, was the same. So we had to start looking for ways to capture this information, to be able to make it user-friendly, to be able to take advantage of this project. People weren't really thinking of, they were happy with it was just going to be a contract of differences and it will all balance out and settle out in the end. But I just saw that there was an opportunity here that we might be able to take advantage of some of those long hours and maybe sell power when it was a better price and minimize those short hours and try to get them down to what they're generating versus being over what they're generating. So that's when we started talking to Alex and his team, see how they could help us, if they could help us, and how we could take advantage of this. And once we got involved with this, I started seeing that there was a great opportunity here for us. So I can't say enough about the progress that we've made here with joining with BuildingLogiX and with this project. It's been a great experience so far. So I couldn't be happier.
Thank you.
I'm going to let Bryan kind of take over from here to talk about what we're doing with this tool, how we're utilizing it to our best advantage. And believe me, we are just in the beginning stages of this. I think there's a lot of opportunity that we haven't got into here yet that we're going to discover along the way as we could go down the road with this. So go ahead, Bryan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Well,
Steve.
hey, Bryan, before you start, I will comment. And first of all, again, thank you, Steve, for your nice words. This is something you and I talked about, and we take a very long-term view of things. And I shared this with you. You represent the longest sales cycle we've ever had. So 20 years we've been calling on UD, and truthfully, because of the work that you did and finally making a connection with you, and truthfully, you and I have been talking for several years, the opportunity finally existed where what we do and I think do well really connected very well with what you and your team were trying to achieve. And we talked a little bit about this before, which is going back a number of years, I would go to conferences and hear about smart cities. And, the reality is the cities will never be as smart or have the opportunity to be as smart or energy efficient as a campus like yours, because all the buildings in the city aren't owned by the city, and some of the larger, metro areas have got central plants and those types of things. But the universities and the healthcares or even large manufacturing, and truthfully, in the world we're in today, the data centers now have got this huge infrastructure. They've got a huge power need. And truthfully, that's why I was so fascinated by what you guys are doing and this project, because you really have done something unique to have a huge impact on the environment. You've done something that can help manage and control costs. And honestly, you've taken a cost center and potentially turned it into something that can be a revenue generator for your university.
Yeah.
And that to me is what is so fascinating about this. So I really commend you and your group. And I know it's not just you and Bryan. I mean, we've met with several people at UD, and it certainly is a team effort. And I'll say too, managing all the politics and all of the agendas and all of the concerns, I would guess was probably one of the biggest challenges, through this whole thing. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that a fair statement?
Very fair. It's collaboration's a big thing on campus. We got to make sure we got everybody involved and everybody's buying in on what we're trying to do. So it's very important to do that. Luckily, UDIT, our IT group, kind of took the reins in getting this process done. So
yeah, right. So, okay, Bryan, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. No, all good. UD has the happiest IT people I've ever ran into in my life. Just if anybody.
Yeah, they're great.
But yeah, so what Steve basically just described was adding a bunch of complexity to how we purchase power, right? So in the past for UD, and this maybe speaks a little bit to maybe why it took 20 years for UD to get BuildingLogiX, it was more about how much, like significantly more about how much power UD was using. And now with this, it's more about how much power we're using at certain times. So like I said at the beginning, I've only been at UD for about 3 months, which pretty much perfectly lines up with when both the Tallgrass deal as well as rolling BuildingLogiX out kind of came online. So I'll tip my cap to Steve and the team of folks that set all this stuff up before I got here. But why BuildingLogiX is really impactful and makes sense for us now is because we need to know how much power we're using every hour of the day for the rest of the 15-year period, basically. So we worked with Dan, Alex, and others at BuildingLogiX to kind of set up all of our existing energy meters, particularly on the electricity side, into this nice portal that you see here too. So we can track hourly energy consumption and aggregate that up into different consumption periods so that we can track and plan for generating value across 3 different things, which I'll talk about in a second. So yeah, to Alex's point, while the complexity really increased, so did the opportunity. So as part of our work with BuildingLogiX, we get some pretty nice reports. So every day we get a daily power brief, and this daily power brief, I know it's kind of small, so I'll describe it. But what it does is it shows us our hourly load forecast for the day, which is based on existing interval data that we have, as well as weather and other variables. I think, Dan, you said that also you factored in things like a
university event calendar and things like that.
So we get our fun complex campus with all kinds of different things going on. So we'll get that. We'll model that against a couple different things. That dashed red line is that 10 megawatt block that the generators kind of expected to use. So and you can kind of see, so in the morning, early in the morning when our power usage is low and the generator's pumping out lots of power, we might be consuming less than the generator's doing. So we would buy or we would sell that power back at the real-time price if that's how that was. So that's good for us. And then for the rest of the day, when kids are in classes and people are on campus, we're going to be a little bit above that, and so we'll buy that day ahead. So that little difference there is that short versus long thing we've talked about. And then the report also highlights the costliest hours of the day. And we get this report every day at 6 a.m. And then we can plan for the day if we need to take any kind of load reduction or other actions that would result in energy savings for the campus. For the most part, if we're not talking about the 6 CP events or the PLC and transmission things, generally day-ahead prices aren't high enough that we have to do anything super aggressive to curb things. But we're always watching it every day so that if there's times when costs get really high, we can make adjustments. On the weekly side, not yet. Sorry, one more thing. Back one. We get a report that kind of shows us our consumption for the previous week as well as our peak, and then critically, it gives us a weekly meter health quality check. So why that's important is we need to make sure that all of our meters are online and recording data. So that helps us with, improving our forecast and also making sure that we have a good understanding of what our usage was when it comes to true up time. So, previously using things like Metasys, like this could be pretty manual. We'd have to go through and look at each meter. So BuildingLogiX does a really nice job. Of doing that for us, kind of automated, and really saves us a lot of time whenever there's an issue with meters. I can see the questions pop up, so if nobody cares, I'll stop and answer them as they come up. So I got a question: does the dashboard show hourly production data from Tallgrass? Not yet. We're working on getting that data. So we don't have like a full portal into that yet. So TBD. Eventually, we would like it to.
Yeah, I don't think if Tallgrass or Canaan or AES, I'm not sure who the responsible party is, but I don't think there's a working API. So we are able to get real-time pricing from PJM, and then the Tallgrass forecast for the remainder of the year, is kind of, I think after the summer operation, it looks like 8.2 megawatts was kind of the target number instead of the full design of 10. But yeah, good question.
We should have that real time very soon.
Alrighty, next slide. Yep. And so here's kind of other examples of things from the weekly report. So a couple different interesting graphs as it shows. On the left, you can see, we get 10 pages of raw demand profiles for every single electricity meter on campus. So these are kind of fun to scroll through. There's a couple different things you can use to check here. So you can check, are my schedules in place, or anything kind of out of ordinary, energy usage too high or too low. And then you can see where we have data issues. So there's an issue from whatever week this was at the humanities submeter. So we can go investigate that. I think that was something we knew that was going to be an issue. Or not that one. That went offline for a little bit. Not a big deal. It's just a couple hours, but it flags all of that stuff for us. And then it also presents us this nice quality table. Ignore the yellow on there. There wasn't anything wrong that whole day, but it shows us. So, for example, we had a meter offline for our research institute for a whole week, and so we were able to catch that pretty quick. I think we knew that one was going to be offline, but these things really help us make sure that all of our meters are recording, and saves me time not having to go through and check them individually.
Again, we're still fine-tuning all these reports. We're not in any way completed with getting these reports generated for the way we want them to look. This screenshot here was from some of the initial that. So it's green right now. If you would look at our screen.
Yes, it is. It is green. We don't have any issues.
Meters are all working good.
Yep.
Next one.
Your data compared to, say,
how many meters total, Bryan?
Oh, don't ask me that. A lot.
There's 100 plus.
Okay.
Meters.
Yeah.
I see two questions in the chat. Is the meter data compared to a model or previous readings? I think just it's got some logic set up for things like if it's reporting 0 or a certain percent, you can see kind of in the detail maybe some of the things it's flagging for. So imbalances between KW and KWH, if it's reading 0 or a certain level, or if it's frozen. Dan and I have been working on trying to set up logic to flag meters specifically for chillers when weird things happen, like service or they turn off for a while. So I don't know, Dan, is there anything else you want to add?
Or weather dependent. Well, I think what some of these questions are leading into, obviously when you see this granular of data across submeters on a campus of buildings, and I know it comes to my mind too, like, it would be great to have basically a hourly model on every single meter, every single building, to not only detect when there's a data quality issue, but like you said, was there a change in schedule? Is something with the chiller plant operating differently? Are we building ice at a different time than we thought? Or something else that might cause deviation from the norm? Or a way to see if some of the strategies you might be implementing are improving? So what Bryan and I have talked about is this year is kind of almost like the new baseline year for a lot of these meters. So I think the goal one day is that in order to build really good forecasts for all the meters, you do need a good baseline of data to model against. So right now, some of these checks are really just statistical checks compared to like recent demand levels of those meters. You know, is there something that's being flagged as an outlier based on 2 standard deviations compared to the last 30 days and stuff like that? I think on the second question, does the forecast use historic data to fill in? So that is an option in BDX where if you have a gap or like a period in yellow for that humanities meter and you said, hey, I actually don't want to retain that flat line, there are a couple different ways in which you can click through the UI and, you know, manipulate or repopulate that data. Depending on whether you know the total amount of consumption that should be filled for that stale time period, or if you just want to estimate it based on historic usage, hour a day, day a week, that type of stuff. You do have both options. But in general, I think not only for UD, but other folks we've worked with, there's a balance just in, you know, time management of how many sub-meter issues do you want to chase when there's a construction thing or a switch replaced or, you know, a network issue or anything like that. We kind of recommended prioritizing like what are the main meters that are used for your campus total that are driving the biggest dollars. Like if there's an issue for a couple hours or even a day on a sub-meter in a building, like is that really something you want to, you know, spend time each week going back and trying to get, you know, perfect with some historic regression? My personal answer is probably not, because once you get a large enough data set, that'll just become noise. So, you know, if you're wanting to build better models in the future and you got, you know, almost 9,000 hours in a year, you can tolerate, you know, quite a few hours, you know, of stale or emitted data in that in the future. So juice has got to be worth the squeeze.
Yeah, and I think for us, that would probably only be if for some reason all of our meters went offline during a PLC event, which that would cause a lot of other problems. So hopefully we're not doing that ever. But so I would ask politely that we figure out what the data was back on that one. But Dan's right, the rest of it, we're not going to go and try to fix tiny little things there. Yeah, so this is just, I think, the last kind of thing I wanted to highlight from the weekly campus energy report is you know, not only does it kind of highlight visually what they are, and then it also kind of, in a qualitative way, describes what's, and quantitative, what's wrong with the meters, if so we can take those and investigate. So here's an example of a couple things that it flagged for the most part for that particular report that week, and we can go and check to see if there's any action that needed to be taken. I don't believe we needed to take any action on these ones, but it was nice.
I think some of these were construction projects, if I remember. Yeah.
Yes, it was a Fitz Hall, our large building that was in construction during the PLC window. So that was our best load drop we ever had. So next slide, please. I think. Okay, yeah. So at the beginning of the BDX discussion, I described kind of 3 value streams that we are going to try to take advantage of with the new Tallgrass deal and how BDX can help them. So the first one, I just wanted to highlight a little bit more on the peak load contribution. So UD has what I would describe as a very good load shedding scheme. So whenever we know that there's going to be a PLC hour, we target between 3 and 4 megawatts of load shed. And we do this through some automated load shedding programming where we have 4 different levels that will trigger. We usually just trigger all 4 of them for a PLC day. And then we go through and do some manual shutoffs via the building automation system. So, most of that's done through Metasys. But Metasys wasn't great at visualizing this all. So what you can see on the left is BuildingLogiX's trend viewer. So we're able to kind of see what our load does for all of campus. And I made some notes. So this one was from July 1st, which was the day before those 2 big demand response events, but it was a PLC hour. So we started our load at like 11.9 megawatts, and I could kind of track it in real time as we were hitting switches and turning things off, and ended up with about a 3.4 megawatt load shed for that day. And then I believe, we got down to 8.5 megawatts, which is almost exactly what Tallgrass was generating at that time. So we were able to pretty much zero out that PLC tag. So that's a pretty unique thing. So, as capacity costs have exploded by thousands of 1,000% or whatever, we were able to take that and make that to zero with a combination of our load shed, Tallgrass, and with the help of BuildingLogiX to kind of visualize all of that. The next slide is our demand response one. So a demand response very similar to PLC, except for it's just, it's a grid emergency, so it's a little bit more intense. So for this one, we aim for between 5 and 6 megawatts of load shed, which is pretty aggressive and done very well, I think. I was very impressed my first demand response day with how much load the university was able to shed. So kind of the same thing. We trigger the 4 automated load shed programming schemes and then go through and turn off more buildings than for the PLC. So this one, we have an agreement that we have in place to shed about 5 megawatts with our demand response provider. So we go through and do that to make sure we hit that. And that's across a couple different meters. What we're seeing here is full campus, but our demand response agreement is across 6 or 7 different campus meters, including our main campus, our research institute, and some other buildings on campus.
And I think it looks like you have an old slide up there potentially. Your savings from this, I couldn't believe it was what $217,000.
And don't shortchange
$215. Yeah, almost $250,000 in savings on that one day.
Well, and that's somewhat unique in the demand response isn't savings. That's like revenue kind of. So we get a check for that for our demand response. So it's different than the PLC, which I guess I don't remember if I said the number before for
75,000.
Yeah, that was just for the load shed. So that the load shed saved us 75,000, and then the Tallgrass was above that. So I did that math, but 8 times 25,000 for that.
Wow.
Too. So.
And this was a 9-hour event.
One of 2 events.
So did you have some hot, unhappy people here on July 2nd?
No,
how did that go on
super
campus?
Pleased.
But was it worth $250,000 in leadership's eyes? I'm guessing yes, right?
Yeah, it started getting a little uncomfortable for some of the students in the residence halls that we had on campus still. That was the main deal. We also did all the residential houses of 500 plus, 400 plus houses in the neighborhood. We shut those back, so there's a few students living in those. So towards around hour 8, we started getting the residential side back up and getting them cooled off again. But then we had to do it the next day again.
Yeah, which was definitely an unprecedented thing, and as a result of some of that, occupant comfort issues that we had with these demand response, that's where things like BuildingLogiX will come in handy too, because we're going to go back and look at every single meter, and I'll get to it eventually. I think the next slide is my tattletale slide. So go to my tattletale slide if it's on there.
Well, Bryan, it's interesting what you just said too, because we've all lived in the area a long time, and we were talking about kind of even just the weather over the last few weeks. But there have been times in the last 10 or 15 years where we've had electrical storms or tornadoes or high winds where people have been without power for 2 or 3 days or 3 or 4 weeks. So you're talking about really a pretty small window of time that's controlled by you. Some of it probably is around communication too. And I think the data you're showing, and I think part of what you're getting ready to share too, is how can we use the data to tell the best story to those that are impacted, and the impact of the actions that you took in terms of, being able to control costs or invest in the school or, any one of a number of different things. So some of it is spin, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And
we'll put Steve in charge of it. So, of the spin.
Oh, I'm a good spinner.
I stole the screen, Steve. I can give it back in a second.
No. You can take it. Brian can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to show my tattletale slide, and so part of that conversation I had on, trying to maximize energy savings, cost savings, that value from things like demand response, but also trying where we can not to impact occupant comfort. So part of that and what BuildingLogiX will help us with is going through each individual building and meters, going back in events and checking, seeing like how do they actually perform at an individual building level. So this example is during the demand response event. AE is Albert Emanuel. That's our admissions building. So somebody in Albert Emanuel called an HVAC tech and said, "Hey, turn our HVAC back on. It's too hot in here." So that spiked. What was that? I can't see. Like 80 to
Almost
100
100
kW.
kW.
Almost 100 kW. So they went outside the normal communication pattern they're supposed to go through our office to make sure, to prioritize what things get turned back on so we're not negatively impacting us. So luckily we were able to catch that one as it happened. So you see we turned it back off. But things like that, we can say, well, hey, why did that turn back on? So that's because somebody went outside the where they were supposed to and was requesting things that could, negatively impact our performance on things like that. So go back and check those. And then we can also, on more just the performance side, I don't think anybody was cheating on this one, but something was going on at Anderson Hall where it was spiking, cycling kind of over and over again. So we can go investigate, why was that happening and how does that impact our KW performance for that particular hour. All in an effort to make sure that those things are performing correctly too, but then to identify ways that, we don't want to make people uncomfortable. So are there different load shedding schemes that we can kind of put in place, or different buildings we can prioritize more to make sure that we're, hitting that Venn diagram of comfort and savings. So I think having this data visibility and quality will be very helpful for that. The last one is this hourly price exposure. We've kind of talked about this one quite a bit. I'll call this one like hourly price exposure or energy arbitrage. But this, like I said, our deal allows us to buy power in a very unique way. So every day we're kind of monitoring pricing to see what the overage will be in cost for the costliest hours. So we buy power at a fixed rate for the tall grass generation, and then day ahead for everything that we're above, and sell it again back at the real time. So how do we use the data that we have to kind of plan for hours that we need to use less power, so that we can buy less expensive power, or use less power so we can sell more expensive power? So I think this tool and all of the reports and data that we get kind of allow our office to kind of start analyzing some different projects. And we have a number of things that we're analyzing, from, reprogramming our load shedding sequences to, enhanced, more fine-tuned scheduling, and then eventually more complex and interesting projects like, battery energy storage and more solar and things like that. So all of this, because everything is about what hour we use it, we need to be as sophisticated as possible in calculating the actual value hour by hour for the entire year for any one of those projects.
Yeah. And so looking at the table, right, your day ahead purchase price of power could vary from $40 to, $100 typically. And you say, oh, some of these hourly overages aren't very impressive, but it's very much a day by day thing, right? When this report comes in. And sometimes, those can be like almost tenfold numbers.
Yeah.
Just for a given hour, and then they can compound for multiple hours. And then I think one of the feedback I've heard from you guys, and I think somebody mentioned it on the questions about getting the real-time generator things, eventually your tall grass generator's got to go down for maintenance, or there could be an unplanned outage or other things that can come up that, aside from what the price of energy on the grid is, that you guys need to be able to plan and react for. So
yeah. And so generally this what the value numbers you're looking at here for the DALMP, or day ahead locational marginal price, that those values kind of indicate that day was not an action day. But if those are in the 3 digits, or God forbid, and I don't think it generally ever gets in the 4 digits, but if for day ahead, but if it did or something like that, and those overages start getting really high, that's when we could start implementing some load shedding to start, and then other resources as we get more sophisticated to drive that overage cost down.
Well, I think one of the other things it does too, and I'll let you answer that question in just a sec. It helps you evaluate other projects on campus. I mean, you know, from a financial impact model, you just added another layer of financial benefit if you're going to do something that is going to drive energy efficiency. That is again pretty unique.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and calculating the paybacks and things like that on energy projects becomes more fun with something like
Yeah,
this, rather than the
right,
traditional way of just, what's my energy savings, what's my demand savings,
right.
multiply, equal, make a simple payback. So this is a little bit more exciting than
Yeah, much more
that.
exciting.
So Brian,
So
I think
yeah,
you had a couple questions. If you had a chance to take a look, I can read them off. One's asking if the tall grass model, assuming 8.5 megawatts per day. So I think, yeah, when the report, which is on the screen, was first created, 10 was kind of used as the placeholder until more data came in, because I think technically we started building our forecast models before the generator was fully online. And I think looking at the data that you guys have gotten on its performance, yeah, 8.5 to 8.2 seems to be the most common range that it runs at. And that is equal production pretty much hour by hour. But as time goes on, ideally you guys will get, it sounds like shortly, the real-time data that can be brought in for that. But there will be periods where they probably won't make that, and it can be weather dependent, and who knows how it reacts under winter storms, or we were just talking about lightning strikes early on in here. I don't know how much the thunderstorms and things that came through would have affected any of that generation. So we have designed this to be something that can evolve as UD gets more granular info, better things to model from historically and whatnot. I think the second question, Brian, was, does Tallgrass provide brokering of the positions, or like how do you guys manage the long and short power? Because I mean that's what makes these project calcs you were talking about fun, is you guys effectively now have like an energy generating resource on hand. So if you play your cards right, you can generate dollars for the university.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I guess one thing, an interesting way to think about it is it's almost as behind the meter as you can get without being behind the meter, in terms of its generating thing. But to answer that specific question, no, Tallgrass doesn't broker the long and short position. AES does that, and we do that with like an annual true up period. So like they'll it's sleeved directly into the distribution system. So AES takes the power, and then if it doesn't have enough, they'll get the day ahead for us, and then if it's too much, they'll sell it the real time, and then we do that true up at the end. So it's not Tallgrass that's managing that; it's AES.
It's the utility, because they're buying that generation basically on your behalf as part of the agreement. And I think that was one of the big risk factors coming into this, and I think one of the reasons that we wanted to get involved and start this project really quick before the generator was online. It's because you all know how well utility companies do with regular billing. You guys can probably appreciate a little bit what Brian and Steve have described. This is probably almost as complex as they get in terms of billing arrangements with an electric utility.
There are
Because
no agreements like this elsewhere, at least in the
right.
state. I don't know if there might be. I can't speak to the whole country, but I know that there's nothing in Ohio quite like this.
Yeah, so every hour of the day matters on the accounting side. And, I think at the end of the year, it's probably, sit down and everybody has their data and representation on both sides to agree on, what is the actual true up, and, double checking, because depending on how you guys perform, that could be big dollars moving one way or the other. So,
Yeah. That's really
do you
cool.
have anything else on
No,
slide?
we've already talked about that, so that's what we're focusing on: shift energy away from high-priced hours to low-priced hours. So.
Yeah.
And then just time for, we have just a few minutes left if anybody has any questions.
Yeah. Well, very good. And if we do, you can either put them in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. Steve and Bryan, both, thank you very much for sharing this. Thank you also for the nice comments, but the project that you did, and I'll say the journey that you're on, is really, to me, what's most exciting. As you said, Bryan, I'm not aware of anything like this either. And, and truthfully, I'm not aware of anything like this anywhere else. So your willingness to share this and quite honestly talk about some of the challenges, I think, is really important. But there's so many use cases for this beyond just the university, which I think is what is really fascinating. So, I mean, if people want to learn more, or, I mean, you mentioned Kendig and Tallgrass, and if they want to get in touch with them, do they work through you? Do they go to their website? I mean, what would be your suggestion if somebody came up to you and said, "We want to try and do this"? What's the first step?
I would say I would get them in touch with someone from Canon to talk to about this. They got a handle. They're doing this. They have started other projects in Ohio.
Okay.
We are the first, and I think some in Indiana as well. So there's others that are going to be taking advantage of this down the next couple of years. But yes, like I said before, just because you have a compressor station near you doesn't mean that it'll work for this project. So you'd have to check with them, and they could do some digging, and
Right.
they would be more than happy to try to get something like this going.
Yeah.
Another location.
Okay.
All I would add
Well,
to Alex is
yeah.
just if anybody does have any questions, I guess you could share my email with them. I'm happy to answer any questions offline if people have other things they want to talk about.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can do that. We'll send out just a little follow up, and we'll include your email in that, Bryan. And that's awfully nice of you to offer. One of the other things I'll share too, I mentioned earlier, Steve, when's your Midwest APA event?
It's the last week in September.
Yeah, and I think you're on the last day of that.
Yes, Friday.
Yeah. Okay. And then, Steve and Bryan will be joining us down at Auburn University on November 9th, 10th, and 11th for our campus summit. People are interested in learning more about that. You can check it out on our website or reach out to us. We're happy to share some details. But, that event is very similar to this. It's trying to, continue to push the envelope of new ideas and, really get into the weeds to some degree around how do you start something different? How do you do something unique? And let's learn from some people that have tripped over some tree roots and gotten lost a little bit and, but have also made a roadmap on how to make it successful because you found the end and created a new beginning for where you're going. So I really commend both of you and the UD team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You were in that hat, Steve. So. All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, very much. Very, very good. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks.
All right.
See y'all.